Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Diablo 4. Today we're talking about the more and more popular concept of Nightmare Dungeon pushing. Pushing tiers as high as you can, eventually leading to the ultimate tier 100 clear, in which you're dealing with those hilariously high level enemies of level 154. It's more popular lately because people are becoming less focused on leveling. More people are reaching 90 plus, and now are pushing the tiers higher and higher. And with Season 1 looming around the corner, the idea of beating a tier 100 before that launches is becoming more and more of a thing. So today I'm taking a look in depth at the current tier 100 clears for each class, the best and fastest runs, and exactly what build were they using and why. Plus we'll get to take a look at which class is best currently and what's the rankings compared to one another. We're going to take a look at proven runs with video footage to refer to, so there's always a chance at this point that someone's done it quicker than what we're looking at today, but these are the current best rankings. So with all that said, let's begin. Starting from the bottom of the rankings, it's Sorcerer, who has a lot of problems with this challenge of tier 100. The important reason is basically the class and its survivability problems. It seems to have the most issue with being one-shot, often randomly, depending on the affixes of the dungeon. Because of that, the amount of dungeons even possible to complete at tier 100 is slim for this class, because they need something without a final boss to even make it possible. However, this doesn't mean they can't overcome the issue, and they have. This is shown when looking at the recent clear by King Dino, a player who recently cleared tier 100 in roughly 30 minutes. The issue here is that they used up all of their deaths during the run, literally just barely clearing it, using a Hydra that killed it while they were dead. The build in question though was obviously a burning Hydra build. The playstyle attempts to use max range as much as possible to avoid the damage entirely while letting the Hydra deal the damage. It's also heavily focused on long immunity times to pop in situations where damage is going to be unavoidable, which is a lot of the time. The enchantments in use were say Flame Shield and Frost Nova, with the shield being a key way to become immune. Now depending on the situation, that might mean you want to wait long periods for Flame Shield to come back to even approach the next fight. Combine that with say the Elemental Attunement passive causes crit to have a chance to reset the cooldown of defensive skills, well that helps the uptime of the shield. Raw immunity is clearly very important. King Dino was using the protecting aspect as well, which nets them another 5 seconds of immunity in the bubble, which has the potential to trigger every 90 seconds, which does mean you could wait the minute and a half every time after every fight to make sure that's available every fight. For full details on the build and the way they use it though, please check out the build guide by King Dino themselves on their YouTube channel. They did their best to translate everything for English speakers, which does seem like a lot of work, so go take a look at the video, drop a like if you can, I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Next up for tier 100 clear times is Necromancer, using the Bone Spear build as you'd expect in a pretty interesting way. EXO was able to achieve their clear in roughly 23 minutes, which to be honest I think could have been faster based on the run. I only say that because they were being cautious and smart to avoid being destroyed and actually clear, but I think if you really wanted to push the times you could be risky. I think it's possible basically. Either way, EXO was using a Bone Spear build in which they were playing at max range. Bone Spear has this certain range where it breaks and splinters, coming back towards you with harder hitting splinters. By playing at max range, the Bone Spear will land and then instantly break and splinter back into the target. Send out multiple of those and it results in many hitting at once, leading to very high burst, perfect for the killing of very dangerous and high health enemies you find in the tier 100s. Using a standard lineup of Bone Spear, Blood Mist, Decrepify, Corpse Tendrils, Bone Storm, Bone Splinters and Bone Spear, the build only makes a few changes to your normal build. Corpse Tendrils becomes the absolute priority, placing that aspect on your amulet to maximize the bonus crit damage to those effective, leading to hard CC and max crit damage itself. Unlike your normal Bone Spear builds then, EXO's focusing more on raw damage, sacrificing the warriors for crit chance, the cold mages for vulnerability damage, instead of focusing on improving your max essence like the normal build. The idea here seems to be you don't worry about build up damage, but more about instant burst, which of course makes sense in this context. Also different to the normal build is the protector aspect, which generates a strong barrier when you damage an elite. So you could wait every 30 seconds for that to be ready for the extra protection. And we also see in the skill tree that EXO leveled Decrepify as much as they could, as well as item contribution levels, which increases the slow percent by a major amount up to something like 60% and almost 27% reduced damage by those effective, which is a major way to prevent damage and at the very least reduce it during the intense run. For full details, as always, go check out EXO's clear video. They have the build linked in the description. Next up then was the tier 100 world first rogue clear by Smoke. That happened 2 weeks ago and was an incredible 1630 clear. The build was based, as you'd expect, on Twisting Blade, grenades, making use of standard stuff like Death Trap, but also Poison Imbuement and Poison Trap. So a good amount of damage over time, with some really underused defensive aspects, which is pretty cool. On their helm, they were using the aspect of Quickening Fog. This drops a smoke grenade after you use dash, reducing the dash's cooldown for each enemy dazed by the effect, and it's the smoke grenade itself that's dazing enemies for 4 seconds, which synergizes with the Trick Attacks passive in the skill tree. That means when you crit a dazed enemy, you can knock them down, which is awesome for CC and damage. The other interesting aspect that synergizes with this was Frostbitten, which causes chilled enemies hit by your grenade, such as the one you're dropping with your dash, to potentially freeze them instead. That can then enhance your crit strike damage to frozen enemies up to 25%, which is awesome. And really cool, underused synergy between the two aspects to not only create hard CC in the form of daze, knockdowns, and freeze, but also give you extra damage for that. Naturally, they're using the standard defensive aspects of Might and Disobedience, with some attack speed, CDR, and so on that you'd expect with a normal build. Meanwhile, the Paragon is relatively standard for a trap-related build. It does include the Devious glyph you don't often see, increasing your damage to CC'd enemies, since there's a lot more of that in this build than normal, alongside the Control glyph for further CC-based damage. It is awesome to see something so underused conceptually mixed so effectively with a meta build to create something survivable for a tier 100. Smoke has their full run on YouTube and a video guide for the build, but unfortunately it is all in Korean. Thankfully, they've been very kind and created a build in a planner so you can view that in English. Moving up to second place for tier 100 clears then, it's currently Barbarian. This clear used the Hammer of the Ancients build, clearing the dungeon in roughly 10 minutes, which is really impressive considering they actually died once during the run. I want to accurately credit the player, but it's difficult because I'm relying on Google Translate. To my understanding, they're a Chinese player under the username Kui Zong, but maybe you guys can correct me and help me credit that. Their video proof was posted on the website Bilibili, which is a video sharing website based in Shanghai, basically a very popular option in China compared to say YouTube in the West. Just like the Sorcerer build then, it makes use of the protecting aspect for an immunity bubble every 30 seconds, but they have it on their amulet compared to other builds, with other defensive aspects such as standards of might, and also the protector aspect for the bubble when fighting elites. Weirdly, there seems to be a lack of the popular defensive aspect Disobedience, which surprises me. I am wondering whether this is listed correctly, but offensively it is standard fare. You know, attack speed, improved damage based on fury, the aspect for the hammer itself, improved damage to stun targets, and the enhancements to meta required shouts as always. From what I can tell, there's nothing truly stand out in the skill tree. A bit of emphasis on defensives, and in the Paragon there's some fortify aspects. With the Undaunted glyph, you gain damage reduction based on fortify amount, and that works well with the Warbringer legendary node that generates fortify per fury spent. There's also the Territorial and Aya glyphs that make their way into the build as well for further damage reduction. But I think this really goes to show just how strong the normal Hammer of the Ancient build actually is, to say there doesn't seem to be too much of a focus out of the normal on survivability. Barbarians then would probably just be naturally at the top of the list, if not for some silliness going on with Druid right now. Yeah, in first place currently is Druid, using a strange, likely to be nerfed, synergy strat with damage reduction while injured and their barrier Earthen Bulwark. To cut to the chase, this build was able to very casually clear a tier 100 in roughly 5 minutes, which is insane. That was achieved by Rob2628, who had actually made their Druid very recently. Here's the concept though. You drop below 35% health intentionally, which activates the damage reduction while injured effect. With enough power and stacking of that, you can get up to 85% less damage taken. But then, combined with Earthen Bulwark, the barrier of the build, you can have a massive barrier that also takes the 85% less damage due to being injured, meaning that barrier is never really getting broken. But it's also the bulwark itself that's dealing damage. You scale the damage with barrier generation, which is a unique damage bucket that other methods don't have, leading to the ridiculous mega big damage potential of the build. Around that is a lot of clever methods then to reduce cooldown reduction to help you have better bulwark cooldowns, meaning you can reapply the barrier often, which is actually causing it to pop for the big damage. Honestly, even if the damage wasn't insane, this would be a great way to tackle tier 100s just because of the mega survivability. But with the insane way this is so effective, I'm not convinced this is all that intended, and I am even concerned that this could be hotfixed or changed by the time I even get this video out. So please keep that in mind if you want to try it yourself. It is possible that it's still in game though, and we do have a build video all about this on the channel to check out right now. But there you have it. That's the current best clears with proof of each class and what build. I hope this gives you context as to how this is all achieved if you want to try it yourself. Of course, things can change even in a day. There might be even a faster time for each class now, but at very least, this gives us context. With that in mind though, please do go check out the people I've talked about and credited in this video. There's a lot of detail about the gameplay and builds to go look at. I've covered the concept and interesting details, but if you want to replicate it, I would go look at them directly. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.